Mi voz puede volar, puede atravesar cualquier herida, cualquier tiempo, cualquier soledad, sin que la pueda controlar, toma forma de canción. Así es.
All right, so the next section is student expectations. In terms of this, again, you're spending the probably first couple of days just really getting to know the students, really getting to know the staff and the community, but you're going to want to have these conversations with your own group of students in either the Batey or Nicaragua to kind of, first off, explain again the GP rules, also, and then discuss them, why we have them, why they're important, if any of the kids have questions about them, and then most importantly, reinforcing those rules. And also, I think in order to reinforce those rules, you need to let the students know the consequences if they break those rules. And that might be something either a combination of consequences that GP already has set up, but also in terms of staff getting together and setting clear consequences for if they break those rules. Because if a student breaks a rule, or even a staff breaks a rule, and those consequences aren't followed through with, no one's going to follow through for the rest of the 6 weeks. And that could be detrimental.
And it's really important to follow through with the consequences because it's easy to kind of want to let things slide, like you just say, oh, that was wrong, and the kid says, yeah, I understand, I won't do it again, blah, blah, blah. But they need to understand that we put those rules in place for a reason, for ourselves and for students and for the community, for reasons of safety, for reasons of integrity. Those things need to be upheld. And
even if it's not a big, rule that they're breaking, it's still almost good to have someone break a rule so that other students can see that the consequences are being followed through with. So it's definitely not the end of the world. And again, even though it might not seem like a big deal and you might want to let it slide, the most important thing to keep in mind is to follow through.
Trust us.
Yeah, trust us, exactly.
All right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
What's an example of a consequence or punishment?
Well, I guess say that a student gets on a moto, which is like a super, super big rule.
Because it's dangerous more than anything else.
Certain consequences, again, this is stuff that can be set within the staff, is, okay, that student doesn't get to go on a paseo on Sunday where everyone's going to the beach. Mm-hmm. Or if it's something that's a little bit minor, like one of our, because again, the other thing I forgot to say is, in our community at least, we as a group set rules. Like the students made the rules themselves. We said, yes, there are certain GP rules that you need to follow through with, no matter what, but then on top of that, knowing the community and knowing ourselves in order to be safe, what are things that you should not do? And so one of the rules the kids came up with is don't feed the dogs. So again, it seems like a minor rule, but it definitely makes sense. And so if, say, that you see a student feeding a dog, or you find out that one of the students fed a dog, just like saying that, okay, you can't, bring the person that you wanted to on the paseo, something like that. Or you don't get, the extra treat or something that everyone else is getting. Just making sure, you're following through on that.
Yeah, and we had similar consequences where a student wasn't allowed to participate in certain fun activities that we had done, or so kind of making them understand that there are consequences and that you will not be allowed to participate in those things that are maybe the more fun things that are happening, or the things that they want to participate in.
But again, part of staff roles, I think, is coming up with those consequences. Mm-hmm. Okay, once you make the list, and also you can come up with the consequences with the kids as well. It doesn't have to be just like, this is the way it is, you have no say in this. Mm-hmm. That's why the first 2 days of really explaining and discussing the rules is super important, because they themselves will feel invested if they're coming up with the consequences. They won't feel like it's you versus them.
And then setting goals, and this is a big and important part of what GP does, and part of it allows us to track progress and see how the kids are growing and changing and improving. And so we talk about this with the kids first in terms of setting goals for themselves. What do they want to accomplish, in their time abroad? What do they want personally? Like what kind of things do they want to do? So we had kids last year who set goals that were everything from learn how to communicate with my host mom using more than 10 words, or get up and go for a run on the road before we had to go to work each morning.
We were all working on not being so serious and smiling a number of times a day, making a joke.
So a lot of times those goals are set in the one-on-one staff-student conversations, and so you do basically, I think we ended up doing bi-weekly check-ins. Yeah. So every other week we would sit down, we would set aside time to say, okay, these were the goals that you set, how have you done with them?
What you just make little goals each week as well. By the next time, I'm going to make sure that, I think our one girl's was that she's literally going to smile, you know, like 10 times
Yeah.
a day, like, and like keep track of it, or like force yourself to do it, with, you know.
And just make sure they're measurable things. So like, it's really hard if a kid says, I want to be a better person by the end of GP, because that's fabulous that they want to be a better person, but you can't really sit there and be like, so, are you a better person this week?
Or if they are doing something that is completely attainable, like I want to learn how to play baseball, making sure that you're saying, okay, I will practice with my host brother 3 times a day, or, you know, once a day. Something that they can actually physically like measure and check off.
And the same kind of ties into setting goals and the community. A lot of times the person who is the community outreach person, this is a great kind of like task that you will have, and it's just setting goals for what kinds of things you want to accomplish while you're there, what projects you can and want to work on, what things we as GP can bring to communities.
And what's available,
in the
community in terms of resources and people.
So, this is everyone's favorite expectation.
Every teacher's favorite expectation. Punctuality, and I think this is one of our biggest successes in our Bate last year, is in order for us to accomplish these goals that we're setting, we need to set these kind of boundaries and positive reinforcement. So what we used to do is punctuality was always a big issue, especially in the Bate. It's just a big cultural issue in the Dominican culture of showing up on time.
Just Latino cultures
Yeah,
in general.
you know, stereotypo. But anyway, so what we would do is, you know, we on our calendar, because again, the first 2 days you're also going to be making a calendar, which you're writing every little meeting and whatnot, so the kids can physically see it. So on that calendar, you say you have, you know, 5 things throughout that week that the kids have to show up to. The kids show up, we would give them like literally like stars for that week. If they showed up on time for every meeting, they would get either a treat, in which we'd buy them like a box of cereal or something that wasn't available in the Bate that we would go to the town to get, or they would get to bring an extra person on the paseo. So little like positive reinforcements, like you showed up to everything, you know, you participated, you were wonderful, you like deserve, you know, these little extra treats. And then if the students showed up to, I think, say out of 5, like they showed up late twice or something, because, you know, they didn't fulfill what they said they were going to fulfill, they then had to take on a community project. And again, that's your kind of like, it's the consequence. But it's a consequence that's also still a positive consequence, because they're still doing something positive within the community. So an example would be that they would have to organize a community cleanup, or that they would have to go maybe to one of the church events or a community event and take notes and blog about it. So something that the kids probably wouldn't do on their own, that, you know, they're not totally trying to do if they don't have to.
And punctuality is important, not just because the kids can't just like kind of come and go as they please and do what they want to. We have goals as GP that we want to accomplish in our time there, and so in providing some structure and doing that, punctuality is part of that. And so it's just a good kind of life skill and practice for the kids to be good at it and to get better at it if they're not good at it. And that's not to say that every single day or every single hour is planned out, structured. You have to do everything at this time, because that's not true. And we do like to allow for spontaneity and flexibility, but when we say that you need to be there, they need to understand that they need to be there, because there are commitments that we have to uphold. So that brings us then to logistics.
Mi voz puede volar, puede atravesar cualquier herida, cualquier tiempo, cualquier soledad, sin que la pueda controlar. Toma forma de canción